think there is a 13 on the clock.
Oh, could be. 1300 be 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Welcome back to Ken's Conversation. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny.
I'm one of your hosts, Ken.
And we're going to talk about a little bit about computer stuff.
Would that make two of your hosts? If
Yeah.
I'm one of your hosts and you're one of your hosts, what's one of your hosts plus one of your hosts? Would that make two? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. Couldn't help it.
You just ruined the flow, just like you ruined that movie for me of Lord of the Rings.
What are we talking about?
We could talk about Lord of the Rings.
We'll have to come back to that someday.
But 1 and 2 is 3. We're talking about USB 3 and all the other connections for computer stuff. Yes, that could be boring for some of you, but it's going to be important from now on until future endeavors on what kind of computer and what kind of connection it needs to have here pretty soon. So we're going to go into a discussion on the different USBs that we know that you're familiar with and what is going on with that technology now and what that means for the future. And I can relay that over to Dad and he'll explain what we're going to talk about.
What's a USB? That's what we have to talk about.
That's
What's
right.
USB? Is it just a connector?
It can be.
like could you use it to button your shirt together if you had two USB connections? No, I don't think that's what it's for.
Unbuttoned shirt. Oh,
USB.
Poked shirt button could be USB.
Unpoked shirt button.
Yeah, an acronym.
Acronym for USB.
Yeah.
I get it. It's spelled PS and the P is silent. Like psoriasis. Starts
Where's
with
the P?
I don't know.
I said untucked shirt button.
Okay, where?
So where'd you get psoriasis?
Untucked shirt button.
Yeah.
You had a P in there somewhere.
I didn't. Where are you talking? You have been listening to nothing in the past conversation, the past hour since dinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Ken and Kenny Vision, and we are sometimes in a different universe.
He's getting that from WandaVision.
No,
we've been watching WandaVision for a while, so we're pretty satisfied on what the last episode had to show us.
So USB is a universal serial bus.
Oh, like when kids go on a bus?
Not the magic bus.
Oh.
No, so what's a universal serial bus? What does that mean? It's an industry standard that establishes specifications for cables and connectors and protocols for connection, communication, and power supply interfacing between computers, peripherals, and other computers.
But what does that mean for me?
So it's how you plug stuff into other stuff. It's one method,
right.
One of many methods.
Mm-hmm.
It was popularized, invented by what was that guy's name? I just had it here a second ago. I thought he died. The inventor.
Spiritually?
No. I thought he had passed away. A.J.V. Bott, and I'm probably pronouncing his right name wrong. B-H-A-T-T.
How coincidental.
Says here 63 years old, born in India, and he developed the Universal Serial Bus and accelerated, AGP, Accelerated Graphics Port, and PCI Express. Oh, I remember that too.
Mm-hmm.
Since I used to work at Dell. But we had people that demanded those kind of connections.
And so for most things, we have computers talking to each other, machines, if you want to call them. And in order to sometimes get power, or in other instances translate to do something, there had to be some sort of connection to the other machine to understand, oh, I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to be connected to the main computer or some output in order to work that function.
Yeah. So it used to be that there were serial bus connectors, depending on how old you are in our audience there. If you're my son's age, you probably don't recall very much, unless you've been into computers, ever seeing a serial bus connector. Most everything that you've dealt with has been USB.
Yeah, for the most of my life.
or HDMI, and when you're looking at like things like videotape players or even PS3 or whatever, they had either composite video for digital, or they had RCA jacks, the red, the three yellow, red, and white, right?
Yeah.
So it was a big deal when USB came out, because back to serial port. So like a mouse, for example, I'm looking at a picture that shows a serial mouse and a USB mouse. The difference is that a serial connection typically wasn't really good about carrying very much data in both directions, and it wasn't real good, if at all, about carrying power.
Mm-hmm.
And USB became more of a universal connection that could be used for lots of things. So if anybody's listening to us today, most likely they have phones or other things that connect into a USB port or power supply, just a portable, wall charger that has a USB connection on it that they plug in. And then at the other end of that could be USB, Thunderbolt. There's a ton of other connectors, like in that picture you had.
Yeah, I have a picture here, diagram, where it provides the different USBs over the time frame, but also the speed. Now, why do you have to worry about speed? Well, with USB, you've noticed, if you go on Amazon, if you try and look up technical stuff, you'll hear, oh, this gadget can be compatible with USB 2.0 or 1.5 or 3.0. And the reason for that is because each of those generations of USB had different speeds of data transfers that it could handle. The more you had, or the larger the generation the USB you have, the better it could translate data. Now, if you're just connecting, let's say, a laptop or not a laptop, a keyboard or a mouse onto your computer, it probably doesn't need that much speed of data, because it's doing a simple task. Most of the simple tasks can now handle USB 2.0. The other thing that you have to watch out for is if you have a USB 3.0, but your computer only has USB 2.0, it won't transfer or possibly be compatible and work the same way.
It might work, but it will never step up. Cable connection by itself.
It'll function 100%.
It'll function. Typically, it'll function at the speed of USB 2.0.
Right. So at that point, why does that matter? Why are we telling you guys why this USB thing is important to you? Well, we notice that technology is continually changing. Almost, it seems like twice every year, it seems like it's changing. But that also means on how your everyday devices is going to be affected. So, we talk about USB 2, 3. You said there was a new one, 3.1, and then there's rumors of a 4.0.
That's what I saw. USB 4 says USB system specified that was released in version 1.0 on August 29th, 2019 by the USB Implementers Forum. USB 4 requires USB-C connectors, which is Thunderbolt.
Yeah, so USB-C is now the newest USB type, and here rapidly it's becoming the new standard USB connector. USB-C is now a lot faster than USB 3, possibly slightly bit faster than 3.1. We're not sure what the speeds are for 4.0, but USB-C, if you had to compare it, if you ever have an Apple MacBook or an iMac computer, a lot of their connections are different from, let's say, my computer, like a PC, Windows PC, where they'll have a lot of Thunderbolt connection, which if you were debating about it, Thunderbolt could handle multiple peripherals as well as other devices, and USB-C has finally come out to kind of do the same thing as what Thunderbolt would do.
And what this is talking about is USB 4. This might be something that our listeners can deal with because they talk about their internet services all the time. But the amount of data that can go through this little tiny wire that's connected to between your devices or peripherals is it's nominally works best at 20 gigabits per second.
Yeah.
But can result in as much as 40 gigabits per second.
So pretty much up to Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C. I think USB-C is 100, can go up to 100. I'm trying to look at my notes here.
I think that's right there on your chart.
Well, this is Thunderbolt 3, but USB-C is not on there.
USB-C is Thunderbolt.
Yeah, theoretically, yes, because they have the same type of connection. So what does that mean for you and your future devices? So let's say you have a phone from a year or two ago, and you're kind of due for a new phone. You will have to start finding new adapters to connect with USB-C. Okay, well, that's just phones. Well, a lot of these items that require USB or USB-C connection, like you can see like lights that can be powered up from your computer, or other adapters are now switching over to USB-C. And like I said, it probably won't be affected now because USB is type A is the 3.0 and 3.1 and 4.0. Those are the types that are still being used today because a lot of people still have devices used for their products to sell out to consumers, and the consumers can still utilize that for like a thumb drive if you have special documents. A lot of students still have the USB type A connecting for their thumbnail drive to transfer documents and data. So at that point, you eventually want to get a USB-C transfer because it's a little bit faster. So what kind of projects or data or documents you need a USB-C or Thunderbolt 3 for? Those are kind of the big project, heavy pushers of data,
right?
Like music, video,
anything with video.
CAD would probably work as well. So those types of things you might want because for Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C, because the data transfer is a lot faster than USB. USB is good for, like I said, general stuff, small documents and data if you're coming from a thumb drive, and that's about it. So I think there'll still be a use for USB type A connector, but like for me, I have to use USB-C to I'm trying to give an example. Well, my laptop here, for example, it has two USB-Cs in order to connect power supply and basically as a peripheral option to my TV that Dad can look at. and it still has the option for 2 USBs, because I know that I still have USB connection devices in order to work from that. And the only USB I think I was just using for my recorder. But do you see a future in changing in from what you're used to?
Well, I mean, what I keep looking at and looking for is, well, why does anybody care? Why do we care about the connectors? And some people are going to say, well, I just want to charge my phone wirelessly. I don't even want to plug in a wire to it, right?
Which comes into that too. Yeah.
So what happens with the push of data transfer, wired transfer, at least as far as things go today, for the most part, is always faster.
Yeah.
Unless you have a wired connection.
Right.
Excuse me. But I think at some point the technology is going to make a crossover, that there's going to be, and I think that there's probably circumstances where you can have a wireless push and reception compatibility. I mean, there's wireless docks that do a fine job of managing computer data and stuff, but what am I trying to say? The evolution of the way the technology rolls out is they make steps. Like they'll come out with another processor that's got higher clock speeds, and it's usually every year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice new processors come out, and they get faster and smaller, and they run cooler and not so hot, and all that kind of stuff that comes out. And I think that the USB 4 and other ports and cable connections are just going to make that jump. But what that'll do is it'll make things more portable. Wouldn't it be nice? I'm sitting here looking at our studio.
Mm.
We don't have a lot of wires hanging out, but wouldn't it be nice to eventually not have any?
Right. And I think that is still something they're doing research on, is if you want to have the fastest connection, you want to have the less laggiest, the most lossless connection you want, no matter what it is, as far as music production, video editing, streaming, for those that are streaming, you want, or do anything on the internet, you want to try and like be as less cable as you possibly can, but at the same time, at least for today's society, you're sacrificing speed. So as an example, for those of you that love the wireless charging of your phones, or do wireless internet related stuff like going to work or doing work, or sending an email, or doing something on Facebook, or even gaming, I would challenge you to get a tool that you can find online and compare a wired connection versus a wireless connection. So with phones, yes, wireless charging is doable on these phones, but I can probably almost bet you, if you had to compare one phone that's charging wirelessly and another phone that's being charged with the cable, I bet you the cable can
charge faster,
charge faster than the wireless one.
Well, there's the other thing is, why do people care about going from 3G to 4G to 5G phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the phone's processors that are getting faster and the cameras that are getting better. It's the ability to push and receive that data
right
faster. And it's not just data. The other thing I was reading about here is it falls in the same lines, is this one distinction that's outlined here as an example. It says, where'd it go? With USB super speed, we didn't have quite the flexibility in architecture to really manage those two distinct bandwidths, so data and video, in a combined fashion over the connector. So USB, again, 2.0, it has been somewhat limited in what it can do. This one talks about, so what if, let's say you have a USB 4 with a 40 gigabit maximum, you're outputting to a 4K monitor. while copying a ton of files from an external solid state drive, which are super fast. Let's stipulate the video feed needs about 12.5 gigabytes. In that case, USB would allocate the remaining 27.5 megabits per second to your backup drive. So again, it allows you to your computer to multitask in, say, data transfers, data and video. So let's say I don't know, if I'm doing if we were taking a video recording of our current,
or this recording,
Ken's Crew, right? And we were doing video, and we also have audio, and who knows, maybe we're streaming text so that somebody who is doesn't have hearing can see what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
We want to transfer that to a hard drive or to a network attached storage. We might use the faster we can do that and offload it to another hard drive or to a separate computer to, I don't know, edit the video, edit the audio, do your final version of it before you post it.
Yeah.
All those things are going to be faster. A faster, why do you put more RAM in a computer? Why do you have an i7 processor over an i5? So data protocols are going to be better.
Yeah.
For everything that we do with them.
Yeah.
We don't know. It's one of those things where you almost don't know until you have it.
Right.
Right. You get the latest iPhone or latest Samsung, Android phone. You don't know what you're missing until you get it and you go, oh, it's got 3 cameras and it does this. And I can do slow motion, but I can also, I don't know what the stuff they can do. They can squeeze in.
Well, if they're doing, especially like, let's, for example, take the iPhone Pro Max.
Right.
It's either the Pro Max or just the Pro that does all this incredible capabilities as far as 4K phones and stuff. And it's all in that phone. Well, guess what? That has to be transferred over to a computer eventually. So they can technically do it wirelessly, but at the same time, they need to have some sort of connector that's fast enough to transfer quickly from that device to another device. And so if they just did it USB, it would transfer eventually, but it wouldn't be fast enough. And so that's why with Thunderbolt and USB-C from a phone, especially one of those high-end flagship phones, it takes a lot to transfer that kind of data because they can do 4K now. They need some sort of connection that can transfer that data quickly for those creative jobs that require doing stuff very fast. Otherwise, they're just sitting there for an hour waiting for a 5-minute 4K video,
right.
or even more.
Even TVs now are what, 8K?
Yeah, they're getting towards 8K now, but it's becoming more and more of how fast can we go, and can we go faster? And
why is faster always better?
But at the same, so you might ask, well, will this help with all my stuff that I have connected to? To some extent, yes. With computers, and when I say computers, I'm not just talking about laptops and desktops. I'm talking about TV, cell phones, anything that has to do with a digital pad. Those are computers or machines, however you want to say it. They all require for you to have a connection, and it will take some time to go there depending on your workstation. So for example, let's say you have slow connection connecting music, or let's say a video coming from your phone to a computer. The connection USB-C would probably make it faster as far as transferability, but that doesn't answer the question as far as like editing stuff, because that really involves on your computer side as far as CPU, RAM, like Dad mentioned, and how much space you have.
Right.
So USB, all these connection that we're talking about, it's more on to the transfer between devices through and the capability like of if you had like a USB connected lamp, but you can turn it on via your computer. That acts probably as fast as you turning on the button.
Right.
So think of it that way, not think of like, oh, if I get USB-C whatever, then my device is going to go faster.
Right.
It's only faster as far as transferability. It's not necessarily making anything faster.
The same thing. So all the stuff these connections, again, we're not just talking about USB. So some of the fun stuff. Well, fun. All of you out there, you have either you do it or you have somebody do it to connect your PlayStation to your TV, or your Xbox to your TV, or your DVD and or Blu-ray player to your TV, right? Well, how are they connected? We were talking about RCA, cables before. Now your TV is connected to your cable box or your satellite dish box, typically by one cable, which is what? HDMI.
Yeah, that was a trick question
Yes,
because there's also another connection that it can do.
Yes, I mean we have,
but that's advanced stuff.
There's one thing. One of the TVs we have around here still has a fiber optic digital audio cable. Oh, it's because I have an old Bose system, and it has digital output. Everything else is RCA because it's an older Bose system, but it still puts out good sound for a free Bose system that I got. But anyway, and that's less wire clutter, right? It's less things that you have to hook up to a device. And the cool thing about HDMI is that it carries sound and video.
There is, if you look up in Kickstarter, there is a wireless HDMI transmitter that you can connect from one device HDMI to another HDMI. The only thing I think I saw review was because it's wireless, I think probably via Bluetooth is just, there's a slight delay because it is wireless. And again, that goes back to wired versus wireless. Yes, it's great, uncluttered. There's nothing that makes it look crappy. Everything's clean and cut. But at the same time, unless your internet is like fiber optic speed to where nobody's on it and it's just you, then it could possibly have some delays or slow down. Or if you also like run out of if your internet goes down, then you're in trouble. And then you might have to rely on Bluetooth if it does Bluetooth run on?
Doesn't run on TVs.
Doesn't run. No, not TVs. Internet.
Well, maybe run on TVs, but typically internet, Bluetooth.
But Bluetooth is its own device.
It is its own
feature.
Wireless connection protocol. It's kind of like a USB. It's like wireless USB to some extent, right? Lets you connect devices, headsets and headphones and your car and Bluetooth. Bluetooth is very, very cool. I don't know if Bluetooth's data rate transfer would ever be able to conquer video.
Just because on how big those files are.
It has to do with the throughput of the protocol of sending packets back and forth. This is really boring, I bet, for some of our people out there. Yeah, well,
Oh, great. Now they're talking about Bluetooth.
Bluetooth.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Where's your Bluetooth?
Oh, Bluetooth. Oh, yeah. Gosh.
Get over it.
Well, sometimes the protocol is... That was fun.
Yeah, but that's Bluetooth is another matter. Bluetooth saves a lot of headache if you want to do jam in your room, if you want to listen to music. I think Bluetooth is very good on that. Or remote control. Bluetooth does a very good job at that. Bluetooth saves lives.
I'm seeing all kinds of wireless video HDMI stuff. There's stuff at some of the big box stores. There's some online. So, what if you could set up an HD TV in another room in your house, like downstairs or a gaming room, and in your man cave or she shed or in the garage or even on the deck? Is there a way to do this without installing a separate top box for that TV? Go wireless video HDMI. It's not new, although you may not have heard of it yet. Provides up to 4K quality video from any media source to your TV. Interesting.
I told you.
Wireless means you're sending video and audio to your TV from your computer, Blu-ray player, or game console wireless.
So does it say? It doesn't say that it's like uses Bluetooth or uses its own device or uses wireless to connect to the internet to transfer the data.
Here's what it's not.
Okay.
Let's see. Wireless video HDMI is not like Chromecast device or other streaming media equipment, which uses the home Wi-Fi network. It also does not work like Miracast or Intel's WiDi, which is what some of the computer systems use for docking stations that are wireless by screen mirroring. Instead, it is a direct connection without wires between your media source and your TV, so there's no degradation in quality or high latency. So that means it's got some latency. The main reason is just because of wire clutter, or if you want to, remote, you don't have to use Wi-Fi, but you do have to have, essentially you're plugging in a transmitter or a receiver. A transmitter is...
So radio signals, or
Yes.
more or less.
Yep.
So that could still be something that could eventually interrupt it, potentially.
Yeah. And if it's at 4K, that's basically tells you can go do the math and tell you what the data rate has to be to transfer video and data packets for TV and stuff.
That's interesting. I think like you were talking about, I think eventually we'll get to that point, but the technology isn't there, or maybe it's not focused on that particular innovation yet.
Right.
Because here lately it's been the connection type. Like they've been all over the USB 2.0, then the 3.0, and then the 3.1, and then all of a sudden 4.0. So they're really onto the connection and USB-C and Thunderbolt. So I feel like if they diverted the attention and research to doing that, maybe they can do it. Or maybe because of that sort of science of radio frequency, there's just so much you can do.
There you go. You said something that's key, and I was looking at one of the things for wireless HDMI, restaurants and bars, doctors' offices, where you could go put a TV somewhere, right? That all is great and wonderful. But at some point, everything being wireless does not make sense. And people go, why not? There's only so many frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so much that you can get into a frequency. Now, that technology has vastly improved. If you have, like us, we don't have cable TV or satellite. We use over-the-air antenna, right? So, for example, Channel 5 has got what? 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, whatever. So, it's transmitting 4 separate TV programs across 4 channels, essentially on Channel 5.
Yeah.
It's piggybacking. Back when we used to have, remember when we used to have a big 12-foot satellite dish?
Oh, yeah. I think we used it a couple times. I
we used
remember
it a lot before.
I remember watching some Spanish versions of Dragon Ball Z, and
Yeah.
there was some anime about soccer, but it was very like we barely got signal.
Well, what was cool about it, and a lot of places still use, they may not use really big dishes. The bigger the dish, the more
transmission.
Yeah, you can collect more. It depends. There's a lot of
Oh.
satellites up there. Anyway, there was a switch. Excuse me. There was a switch on the receiver box because I had to dial in the stations
Yeah.
by hand. There
I
was a
remember
dial,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And there was a needle to tell you the
Yes.
signal strength.
But it wasn't like
So there was like a plus and a minus
Yeah.
switch. I actually had gone out to carried the box and stuff when I was setting it up in the yard, setting the dish up, and I carried everything out there. Like, I think I even carried a TV out there because I needed to adjust the dish,
Yeah.
and I read up all the stuff. Anyways, the switch, so let's say I tuned in a satellite TV station. I'm just gonna, I don't know what the channel was, channel 100.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching a TV program. The signal was super clear. If you flip the switch from plus to minus, there was a little tiny servo in the receiver on the dish that would change. It would turn, I think it was just 90 degrees. Yeah, this little thing would turn 90 degrees physically. Turn 90
So
degrees.
what did that do as far
What
as
it did
the
is
channel?
it went from channel 100 to now like channel 101.
Hmm.
But what it was doing was if you will, the beam of the frequency coming down from the satellite in one direction, say vertically.
Yeah.
If you looked at the beam as like a ribbon, like on a birthday
Yeah.
package, right?
I'm
If a
following.
ribbon, if
I'm
it was
following this.
vertical, there was a television station coming down on that beam vertically. Once you flipped the servo and turned it horizontally, it was the same piece of ribbon, if you will, but at a different twisted angle that broadcast a completely separate channel.
Mm.
But it was the same beam of frequency.
It's like putting in a key with different slots does different results. Like
Kind of.
kind of
It's the same key. Like, let's say you put the key in and there's a roller on the key and you can change it and say, oh, now I unlocked this. And if I roll it to another number, I'm still in the same slot and I
Right.
unlock something else.
so that's kind of the same
So
concept.
again, digital TV today now is they're piggybacking signals, multiple channels
Yeah.
off of a very small frequency. Well, we get to talk about frequencies. At some point, at least, and we say this with current technology, you can only get so many signals in there. Well,
Yeah.
20 years ago, there was no digital TV. There wasn't no channel 5.1, 5.2. It didn't work that way. It was analog.
Mhm.
It came across the air at a different frequency, and the transmitters and receivers were different.
Mm.
So who knows what's going to happen 30 years from now? Are they going to be able to do from 5.1 to 5.1 thousand, and there's going to be 1,000 channels of channel 5 on the same wavelength?
Mm.
And for the people that are much smarter than me on frequencies and transmission rates, I'm probably not talking this very well.
No, I
But-
think I do know someone that's in radio broadcasts that can probably emphasize on that they can do it in a future episode at some point, but not today. But yeah, what does that mean for all of you, for USBians or Thunderboltians? I would just watch your devices and plan on changing your devices to adapt with USB-C and or Thunderbolt if you're not at that point. Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C they are the same connectors, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. The most frustrating thing, and I'm not there yet. You've crossed the bridge.
I did.
Is when they took away standard, 1.8 millimeter headphone jacks out of the iPhone,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you got to use the stupid proprietary Apple adapter to be able to plug in your headphones.
Well, because
So tell me,
they're
are there any headphones that have a Thunderbolt adapter? Or not a Thunderbolt connection without an adapter?
there probably is, but it's not advertised as much because I would probably say because a lot of it is now being changed to wireless headphones, and that's kind of where everyone's kind of moving on because they don't want to worry about wires that are coming in. But again, at the same time, wireless does not always. So for example, if you're going to be a music producer, you can do wireless if you don't have that much going on. But in order to get, and maybe I'm wrong, I could have my friend that, because I also took audio classes, but he actually completed his to tell you more. But I feel like because I have my headphones wired into the computer, I can get uh, less latency to hear what's going on and hear exactly what I'm missing that I need to edit into our podcast as an example, or even for music for our band. You have to be critically listen to every single parts of the music and frequencies. But if you get some latency, you kind of miss those those things from listening to it. So, and I think wires can also power headphones. I have special studio monitors. They do have wireless ones that they're now doing, but they're like super expensive. But I think that they also self-powered.
And what's the problem with wireless?
It's not fast enough.
Batteries.
That's true.
At some point, they haven't solved that issue. So I like to say this: everything is better. We talk of the current worldwide situation.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is better the more direct it is. So, although the video and the quality of high definition movies and TVs is, you see every pore in someone's face and everything, and if an actor is attractive, actor or actress is attractive, you get to see them on a big screen. They're super attractive because you can see them. But if they got blemishes and they didn't cover it up with the film, you get to see all the blemishes and everything else too. Not that that makes any difference. Anyways, my point is,
yes,
the more direct a connection is, so I'm going to make an analogy out of our human connection, the more real the experience. So, for example, have you ever seen a sunset or a sunrise or something that you've seen, the Grand Canyon, looking out at the mountains, whatever, that you have seen, that you and I've gone to an air show, something we've seen live that we've also videoed, and then you show somebody else the video because you want to share the experience with them? It's not the same.
right.
Never.
Yeah,
I don't think that it will ever be the same. It might be close when they can add smell and wind and touch and feel and 3D and almost like recreate you being there
which
virtually.
Which VR is getting close to it. Right. So like I finally got to play on the Oculus Rift with my girlfriend, and it's getting super precise as far as visuality.
But again, it will never replace the real thing.
Right.
A photograph. I've taken, I don't know how many photographs I've taken that have tried to reproduce something that is even something that's not far off, like a flower or something up close. And people think, oh, that's great, that's pretty, that's beautiful, you should blow it up and put it in a frame. That's fine. Yeah. It's not the same as being there. And I think that the experience, somebody was talking about this recently on the radio this week about even CDs. A lot of people have gone back to vinyl because there's something about the scratches and the ticks and the hisses that you get from vinyl that gives it more of the real studio effect of when, for example, the Beatles recorded it.
It's a more pure sound than, I don't want to say more than CD, but definitely more analog and pure noise coming from a vinyl. Better than digital. Right. Digital has gotten better, but as far as the authenticity, the pureness that comes from vinyl, I think that's what people liked. Right. I like the sound that is coming from speakers. Like I still have your set.
I remember when CDs came out, and I was like totally blown away with how clear they were. But now it's almost so clear that it's got no depth to it.
I think also the same time vinyl has made their sleeves more decorative. So like I went to my friend's house and they have a whole bunch of vinyls that they like to play with this simple setup that they do. They've now got vinyl players have gotten more simpler, but they also have like a wall that looks like decor that's just hanging on a wall shelf that they've hammered into it, and it looks actually pretty nice. A lot of the artwork is pretty cool, and I'm wondering if that's also just another aspect. They love like the art design on a CD cover, but it's covered with plastic. They're not getting like the full immersion of the art cover.
Even the 100 or so vinyl records that we have in our rack, if you pick one up, they've got stories and there's stuff written on them. You can never get that out of a CD.
No.
Even if it was one of those like old DVD or Blu-ray boxes, you open it up and it had, I don't know, 2 or 3 hinged things in there in a store. You still couldn't get it. You had to pull it up on screen and read it, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that, but the experience of a record, vinyl record, and its sleeve, and what the packaging, and like you said, the artwork and all the other stuff that goes with it, the tact. It's kind of like, there's a lot of people that are really used to reading digital books. That's fine. Again, nothing wrong with that. There's a whole, people wonder, well, how come people are still printing books? Because people love to have a book in their hand and dog ear the page where they left off, or highlight it,
or have it on a shelf,
or
to
bend it over backwards,
or have it on the shelf as a decor to show people, like, wow, this guy's pretty knowledgeable, and look at all the books that he's read.
Yeah.
So whatever. But like, I don't do vinyls. I like to do cassette players. I always like the little tiny sounds that it makes, the machine noises when you insert a cassette tape and then close the door and press the hear that click button. Play button. I kind of like that more than the vinyl. There is a company that actually makes cassette players for bands that I like to listen to, but I think it also depends on the bands, if they or their publishers, to see if they want to go through that route. But anyways,
the cool thing is that we've got the equipment. We've got a Marantz stereo and the
true.
Bose
we
system.
do have the equipment for it.
And the cassette deck that you have will do dubbing, which is you can make copies of cassettes.
So if you are a band that would love to have a cassette copy, contact my dad. He'll do it for you for, I don't know. He'll negotiate the pricing. Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like if you have a record or
and they want a cassette
CD
version
and they
of it,
want to have it on cassette.
Yeah.
Yes, we could probably set that up. I'm not set up to do it right this minute, but we could do that.
So we're going to do a new segment of our show.
We are.
That's going to be called Unread and Unready. Do you know what it's going to be about?
Unread stuff?
No. Well, to you, maybe.
Not the color red stuff?
No, it's not anything about the color.
Unread.
So it's just a segment, Unread and Unready. It's more or less talking about people that just doesn't know. I'm not going to say what I do for a living, because I don't want to give any hints, but I have tons of stories where the customer, even though the motto is the customer's always right, sometimes the customer just doesn't know anything, and and it's not trying to be mean, but and I get it. Everyone has their ignorance. I was there when I was a kid. I still probably am at this point in time. You've experienced it at your time frame, and it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. I know some people like, well, these youngins don't know anything. The set could be the same for older generations that don't want to do anything. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to read a little. So I took some messages that I was going back and forth with a customer the other day. I won't give out any names. I'll try not to be specific on what we sell. but it has something to do with more electronics.
Right.
So, I received a message. I purchased this item yesterday. I'm going. If you want to make fun of the grammar, you're more than welcome to. This is texting or typing as of 2021. I'm going to wire it to 220 volt to run a 2.5 horsepower DC motor. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. That's
fine, just for you.
Yeah, okay. For metal lathe in my shop. Can you please email me very specific instructions on exactly how to wire this? I'm pretty handy. Note that I'm pretty handy and wired my entire workshop, but never wired a DC controller and DC controller and DC motor. Thanks. This is through a messaging platform that I will not read this platform or tell what the platform is, but we can't contact customers outside of our work. Also, our work helps resell stuff. We are not, quote unquote,
You don't provide technical guidance.
we're
on how
not
to do
technical
something.
experts on any of this stuff, although you could ask us because I actually have wired this stuff before, but I am in no question an expert to say you should follow my advice. This is what you need to do. So we usually tell them that there's a manual that comes with it that should show you how to wire all this stuff up. And if you can't, most of the time you should be able to look online on Google or something like that. So anyways, I took the liberty of replying to it. The drive should have come with a manual on how to wire it together. Was there one in the box? And the reason I asked that is because I thought he already ordered it and he was just asking questions. Apparently he just ordered it.
Oh.
So anyways, he comes and replies, it has not arrived yet, but if the manual is the same as the one in the ad, I'll need some help. I'm going to pause there. So we did do some photos of some of the manual, but not all of it. No mention of wires coming in from 220 wires. No mention of wires going to the DC motor. It talks about relays, contacts, jumpers, trim pods. Don't even know what that is. I just need very simple wiring directions to go from my 220 volt junction box to the control and from the control to the motor. If the manual does explain all that in plain terms, I'm sure I'll be fine. And then I replied, the manual actually has more instructions in the actual copy. We only have a few pictures posted on our listing from the manual. So that was probably the beginning of this month.
Mm-hmm.
So out of all that, can you, I know when you fix planes, or let's not say planes, just anything, what do you normally do when you're trying to figure out a problem?
Research it.
You do research. And what does that entail?
I could be manuals, books,
Videos.
I'll use an airplane if I'm trying to troubleshoot a heater run by gasoline that's on an airplane,
Right.
and it's not working.
Right.
Because this has happened recently. I do a couple of things. First, I look at what I'm working on,
Right.
and I sometimes either draw a sketch or take pictures. That's very handy now because we have phones, right? And I'll take pictures and I'll look at it and go like, okay, is there something not connected or whatever? And so you do your basic troubleshooting. Nope, still not working. Next, I go to the manufacturer's books for the heater, the aircraft, and a parts diagram.
Right.
Because sometimes one book by itself doesn't give you all the answers. Right? Like in your case with this guy, it might not be he may need to go to completely something different to say, well, what's a pot do? I don't know. Go figure it out. What's a pot? It's like basic electronics. You got to go figure what's a pot do? What's 220 volts? 220 volts is AC, not DC. Well, you got a problem. You got to get voltage transferred from 220 to DC volts if you're going to shut a DC pot on. Anyways,
So,
I'm just
but going back to your airplane thing, do you ever contact the main manufacturers for technical help, or do you get it from from someone that's selling it?
rarely. But there are times when we might find out, like, again, from research is, okay, well, it turns out there's a guy in Mississippi who knows exactly how to do these things because he's the best.
Right.
So if we've
'Cause he's well known to
exhausted,
do that.
if we've exhausted everything on how we do it, and we still haven't figured it out, like
Then you wasted a whole day of doing that.
one time we did. We wasted 8 hours on an airplane to try to figure out why a particular warning horn was going off, and 2 of us could not figure it out. We made a phone call, and the guy said, "Bet you got a broken wire right here." We hung up the phone, went and looked up underneath the airplane, and sure enough, there was a broken wire right where the guy said it was. That guy knew exactly what he was talking about because he worked on that kind of airplane
But you
all the time.
But you understood pretty much the fundamentals of that plane and
Yep.
how it works and all that stuff before this guy was like, "Oh yeah, it needs to be that." And it's like, "Oh, it's like, yeah, they kind of do this because of XYZ and that fills in your blank."
when it turned out it was a hidden,
Yeah.
the way the wire was broken was not something really easy to see.
So, here's a continuation if you're curious to know the end of the story. He replies, this was a couple days ago. Just received the controller, no manual. I highly doubt that. Just a single sheet with less info than the information in the ad. Please let me know exactly how to wire the controller. Need to know how to wire for my AC power and how to wire to the DC motor. So with this particular drive, I know that the factory, I know they put in a manual. They normally do. But in the case that they don't, I know that they also have a barcode that you can use your scanner to look it up. Also, he could have just Googled the drive model part number and put in manual and it would have showed up. So anyways, hi John, there should have been more than a single page manual with that drive, unless the factory is starting to put in digitally with a barcode you can scan. You can find the manual online. I couldn't mention in this particular platform, I couldn't mention anything outside like emails or phone numbers or whatever. They could, but I couldn't. You can find the manual online by searching quote unquote this part number manual. I'm not going to say what we're selling. You will want to choose the one with XYZ with the company that it represents. So I gave him
the answer.
I gave him an answer to look on a manual
Right.
to at least have him read. And if he gets confused and came back to me, I might have maybe tried and answered it. So the next one, he says, "You really don't know how to wire this, do you?" Ticked me off. I'm saying that. I'm not reading it.
No, I know.
And so like I kind of just like sat back at that and like this guy probably didn't do any research whatsoever when that drive came in, and he's expecting me to explain every single detail, wasting my time of the day to explain to him all this stuff.
Yeah. You maybe could have cut it off at the head when the first question came through and said, "I'm sorry, we sell the products, we don't wire them."
But I have wired them. I wasn't going to let him know that. But
that's not your company's job.
right. And so anyways, I'm kind of reading this out because it's silly to where like I don't know why this I want to say attitude came from, to where like look, we're all in this about knowledge and trying to learn something from it. I would probably be like him the same way. You know, I'll admit if I had no clue about electronics, like I don't know how to wire this stuff up. But at the same time, if I don't put any effort into reading a simple instruction on how to possibly do it and say, well, what's this mean? What's this mean? Again, my guess is he was an older gentleman, much older gentleman, who didn't want to find any time in his day to sit down on his computer and do some research and find out what these things mean. And I think he should, because he's wanting to do this metal lathe stuff. He's going to have to learn this kind of stuff in
Right.
case something goes wrong.
Right.
So anyways, so I did reply back. My friend told me, is like, if I were you, I wouldn't answer, but I would totally understand if you want to. I would just do it in the nicest way possible. So I contemplated, and I replied, I do know, and I've given you the resources to find the informative manual. I've also attached a picture of the diagram to see where you need to look for on the drive to connect. So I actually took a picture of a diagram of the part and circled what he needs to look at as far as connecting his motor and drive. As far as your motor, I had no clue about his motor.
Right.
Like, because motors, from what I understand, are wired differently, but they also should come with a plate and possibly a manual to show them how they can connect to it. I said, as far as your motor, you need to look at the motor's wire diagram on the plate to see what wires from that will correlate with the wires in the diagram of the drive. If there's no label on the motor, I would suggest for you to look for that online or contact the manufacturer. That was the last thing I said, and I never heard back from. I was waiting to hear back something from him.
Well, you did well. You did good. I used to do that stuff when I worked with computers. I went out of my way because I had a vested. I know your thing's not sales, and they bring you into that, and that's not what you're supposed to be doing. But I was in sales, so my customers were very important for me to make them want to buy more stuff from me. So I did go out of my way to find stuff. They would ask me something like, well, how do I transfer the data from my old computer to my new computer? And I would go through the same kind of thing. I said, well, there's manuals on this, and here's this, and this is what I said, and this is what they say, and this is how you should do that. Well, I'm not having any luck. I'm getting this error, and I'm getting that error. I'm like, well, we have support for that. So I would go through the same kind of steps to very delicately say, I don't have this. Depending on how much time I wanted to invest in it, I might go, okay. I would go and find all of our manuals and stuff that actually had the step-by-step instructions. This is not something that was in my job description, right? But I would compile that, put it together, because it was one of those things where it's like, what if I get somebody else to ask me this? So I had all these folders and things. I'm a email pack rat when I was working in IT and doing that kind of stuff. And I would collect that stuff. And it actually kind of came in handy, because then the next person that asked those questions, I go, look, here's a PDF, and fire it off to them. But like I said, it's very time consuming, and if they're not very willing to help themselves, it makes it really difficult.
Well, and I understand if they ask questions about something in particular that they weren't unsure of, but it's like, I don't know. I felt like at the same time, it felt like to me the guy didn't put forth any effort to try and understand how to connect it.
He needed a USB connector in his head.
Possibly.
I'm bringing this full circle.
You're possibly right. But anyways, that was our unread and unready. If I do get any more, you'll hear from it here on Ken's Conversation podcast. Sometimes it's ridiculous. I couldn't find the ones that were super redundant to where it was like, what was this guy's problem? There are some instances where we have that. It'll probably be mentioned, but
remember, they're just asking for help.
Yeah, but it's fun to just tell them that they're silly.
I was looking at one last thing that had to do with computer stuff. I was talking about processors, and it made me think of something called Moore's Law that came out around 1970. And that is that the number of transistors on microchips doubles every 2 years. So if you ever think about the rollout of computers that come out from the big companies, HP, Dell, Apple, it's about every 2 years, even phones, about every 2 years is roughly when a new model starts to roll out. You might see it every year, but it's 2 years in development, and then they're having to test operating systems, programs, and everything against all of the faster speeds and things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting stuff.
Well, that's about wraps it up.
Thank you for putting up with a maybe not so interesting and not so much fun kind of conversation, but hey, it's technology stuff, and it's stuff.
Because it's IT.
No, Ken's conversation is about conversation about things and stuff. Star Wars and stuff. We've done.
Is this a segue onto try and have people visit our website
Well,
at www.kinscrew.com?
Well, I think they should. Because if they want something to listen to, they can listen to several of our postings out there.
And what platforms can you find us, Dad?
Podbean.
You just passed some. Yeah, Podbean.
Podbean is one of them.
Uh-huh.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Listen on Spotify, Audible, TuneIn. Listen on Stitcher or Podcast.
Listen on Spotify. You mean just Spotify?
It said listen on Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify. Just say Spotify.
I could just say Spotify like that.
Yeah. Anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to message us. Feel free to comment us. Feel free to follow us, and we'll be like to answer any and all questions. Or if you have a topic that you want to talk about,
If you come visit us on a weekend when we're home, I will make you a latte that looks similar to the one in the picture on our website. So if
why
you
would
haven't,
you want us to visit? You want them to visit us?
sure,
I'm busy.
they could visit.
My weekends
They can
have
visit me
been
if they want
booked.
to.
by my-
But I won't be able to make the plant flower looking thing in the coffee foam there. So
Well, you can take them out somewhere else while I'll be sleeping.
on the way out, I'm Ken.
And I'm Kenny. And
We'll see you next time.
we'll see you next time.